Okay, so we are Mentor Virginia. Our goal is to foster quality mentoring relationships across the state. And we do this through a variety of ways. Sometimes that involves training for the mentors and mentees. This could be assisting in getting programs AmeriCorps Vistas if they need assistance in their programming, no cost consulting, and at cost consulting as well. And Steve, our presenter today, is actually one of our technical assistants. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also have the National Quality Mentoring System for programs who feel as though they're ready to be certified nationally. So our TA is open. Part of what we're talking about today is recruitment strategies. If you are in need of assistance in your recruitment planning, we do have experts in that field, Steve being one of them, as well as many of our other consultants. We also have experts in everything from logic model development, evaluation, how to start a nonprofit. So if there's any needs that you all need and you're looking to get technical assistance, please reach out to me and I'll get you guys connected to the consultant who's best fit for you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Steve, who's going to be talking about recruitment strategies to reach your program specific.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma, and good morning, everybody. As Emma mentioned, my name is Steve Decker. I am a site coordinator with Communities and Schools Nova, which is an organization that provides staff to provide further student support at different partner high schools. So I'm working in the schools right now, but as Emma mentioned, I'm also a TA provider with Mentor Virginia. I've been involved with different youth serving organizations and mentoring programs in different capacities for the better part of 10 years now. Love what I do. Love to see a bunch of people here, and I just want to say to everybody here on the call in these really complicated times, I see you all and want to give you all my best good vibes and and support and for all the great work that you're doing. I hope this conversation, this presentation today will help you think about ways to in a very complicated landscape, make the most out of your recruitment efforts and your outreach. All right, we got this to work earlier. Can we get the presentation up? Maybe. Okay, that doesn't look the same as before. Hang on, sorry, 1 second here. Entire screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen in the presentation?
Looks good.
Yes, okay, cool. We got there. Okay. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to minimize the cameras here. Also, I'll just say, because of the way I'm sharing my screen, I'm not going to see if people are like raising their hand or asking questions. I'm hoping to do a kind of a short presentation and then leave us time for like questions and discussion after. I don't pretend to be the guy with all the answers because recruitment is very tough, as we'll talk about. So I'm hoping, in addition to the presentation, we'll have the time to maybe share some best practices and tips among all of us, and kind of get that brainstorm energy going. But my part in this is to talk about strategies for recruiting mentors and keeping your focus and sanity in the process, because I am here to tell you all, first of all, something that you already know. Recruiting mentors is not easy. There are a lot of challenges that go into that process, and it can be a very long process to get a sustainable pipeline or network of mentors and volunteers coming to you within your community or your target audience. There can be specific challenges that go with that too. For example, for people who are doing or participating in mentoring as a program specialist, or what I would call like a dual role, a professional, which means you're doing mentoring and also other things. So, like in a previous role, I was a K through 12 case manager for school students and for K through 12 school students, and also a mentoring program specialist, like a match sport specialist. The time you're taking to recruit mentors is time away from your normal day job duties, your match support, your supervision, any reporting that you have to do. For people that may be more specifically, like within your agency, you are specifically in charge of recruiting volunteers. Mentoring can sometimes be a hard sell to volunteers who may be coming and are like, I want to help I want to be involved, but I don't want to commit to this 6 month long or year long, intense commitment working with one person when there are other volunteer opportunities, things like, driving clients or doing more kind of one-off tutoring. Um, as a recruiter of mentors, you have to kind of sell that longer commitment and that more intense volunteer opportunity within your base. There are other challenges as well. These are common challenges that when I talk to clients or organizations about recruiting, these come up a lot. Knowing how or where to start in Virginia, and specifically in Northern Virginia, where I'm based out of, because I work at Alexandria City High School. This is a big area, and there are a lot of organizations who are making asks within the community and asking for volunteer help. Knowing how or where to start is a big part of getting your kind of message and your recruitment effort out there. I had a client recently. I love this analogy, and I told them I would borrow it. I had a client tell me once that knowing how to start recruiting mentors for a program is like going to the gym or getting motivated to go to the gym. It's hard to get motivated. You may not be sure how to start like your workout program or what is the best way to do it. And so you kind of get that sort of block in terms of how to like roll out either a strategy that you've created or kind of new efforts to get recruitments to your door or to get volunteers to your door. Um, Also, balancing your recruitment plans with recruitment deadlines. So it can be hard sometimes to do the planning and the legwork needed to have a coherent recruitment strategy when managers or funders may be telling you that you need mentors in your door yesterday, or are putting those deadlines on you. And so it can be hard to kind of focus and center when you have those challenges circling around, and also frustration and burnout. Like I said, I am not the guy with all the answers as far as, recruitment goes. I've taken plenty of swings with different organizations to recruit mentors. Not all of them have been hit out of the park. And so, when you try something and you don't get that response from the community, or you don't feel like your message is getting out there, it's hard. I think the trick to that is, rather than kind of letting that frustration take over, figuring out how to kind of read that and figure out, okay, what can I learn from this and how can I make this actionable going forward? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I think this is a question that Emma put in as kind of one of the topics that we would focus on, about kind of how much outreach is too much outreach. I'm going to kind of reframe that a little bit. We're gonna talk about what is the right amount of outreach for an organization, and the truth of the matter is there is no one answer to that. If there was, I think Mentor VA would be out of business, and they wouldn't be having me as a consultant to talk to individual clients. It all depends on your program's needs, on your teams, their ability to devote time to getting out into the community and spreading your ask or your message. And as you examine who your target audience is for volunteers, there are different ways to deliver messages to those sectors within the community. Those may take different amounts of time or different effort on the part of your team. So we're going to reframe this question even more. We're going to talk about, how do I make the most of or get the best result out of the outreach that I can do and still keep my focus and sanity in the process. Very important. I'm trying to look out for you all. So, getting into a recruitment mindset, I've talked with a lot of organizations over the years where they start from a place of, we have this funding deadline, or we have this need in the community. We need to get mentors in now, and we are just going to do kind of a shotgun blast of messaging and just get our ask out there every corner of the community, and we'll get the responses that we get. And there's some utility there when it comes to just trying to do the most outreach possible. But the important thing to remember is that volunteer recruitment, and particularly mentor recruitment, is a long game. And the mission of recruiting mentors is not just to recruit people that make it to your door. You're trying to recruit mentors that are going to go through the onboarding process, get trained, stick around for matching, become matched with a young person or with a group of young people, depending on your program, make it through their 6 month or 1 year community or 1 year commitment, and hopefully have a successful experience both from their eyes and from the young person's eyes in your program. So, looking at that long game and looking at that process in terms of your recruitment strategy can be served by doing your homework and by looking like taking the time to take a real deep dive and to create an accurate picture in your mind or in your program's mind of what the ideal mentor in your program looks like. This is what we talk about when we talk about warm body recruitment versus targeted recruitment. So, warm body recruitment is what I mentioned earlier, just spreading the message out, and whoever comes to the door, we're going to work with them, we're going to put them into our program and get them matched. And I'm not trying to say that that type of recruitment does not, cannot work or does not produce quality mentors, but in that situation, what you are setting yourself up for potentially by not looking at who would be an ideal candidate for your program. For your program specialist, that may mean that they are taking more time or need more time to to support these mentors who may not immediately like have the type of comfort zones you're looking for in your program, or might not have the kind of like the lived experience or the real experience that makes them a good fit immediately to work with your mentees. Targeted recruitment, you're taking a look at what that person looks like and you're specifically going after them. um, you're looking at demographics. Like I said, you're looking at skill sets, you're looking at lived experience and comfort zones, and again, the amount of support needed from your program or your match support specialists. And then from that picture, you can then craft a message using some hooks based on strong motivators. And we'll talk about this MBICE in a little bit, but it's about using that picture to drive your message and how you spread it out into the community to try and as I mentioned before, make sure that the people coming through your door are in the best position to go through the entire process rather than just stop at the door. Because mentor recruitment is one thing, and mentor retention is another thing, but they are also interlinked, and it starts when you are recruiting mentors. I'm not going to go through this entire slide, but I just wanted to put this as kind of a visual aid. When we talk about building this mentor picture or mentor profile, this is going to obviously look different for each program. The thing at the bottom is a sample mentor profile. It's not based on any specific agency or program. But again, these are the kind of things that as you and your team are thinking through, just by the nature of the picture you're putting together, this is going to immediately generate, ideas for where within your community that you can go. This is based off of obviously like your program's capacity to support matches. It's based on who your mentees are and what their needs are, which you may know if you are a long time program or if you're just starting out, you may be collecting that information when you do like assessments and intakes with your mentees. But you're building this picture again to not just to help you, recruit volunteers, but to put them in the best position to succeed in your program. For people who have seen this handout before, because I know this is something that we at Mentor Virginia use a lot, and it kind of makes its way around. I also added one more category that is not always on the handout. At the bottom, you'll see at the sample mentor profile, I added comfort zones. One thing I would encourage all agencies to do, any agency to do, is to be open and upfront about any kind of common challenges that mentors face. I've actually been to a like recruitment event once where a staff member of a mentoring program was talking to, the general public and was saying, listen, our kids, they face some really real challenges, but you will always have the support of program staff. We'll be there to check in with, and you will never, in this program, you will never be put in a position where you are outside of your comfort zone. And I usually try to keep a straight face when I'm at these recruitment events. I can tell you, I think that day, if you guys have ever seen the Kevin Hart meme of like him looking around with a microphone and giving side eyes, I think I tried very hard not to have that look in that moment because, of course, our mentors have to wear a lot of different hats, and there is no way, even with the support and training of of your program staff that you're providing to your mentors, there's no way that you can guarantee that people are not going to be put outside of their existing comfort zone. So knowing what those challenges might be, being prepared to train and support mentors in those challenges, but also being prepared to, trust the people that you are reaching out to with the knowledge that this may be something that they're going to experience, and giving them that information up front. I know some people think that that may be a potential turnoff, but you are allowing mentors who may not be a good fit for your organization to self-select out. If people, for example, whether you might think it may kind of go without saying, if people don't realize until they encounter your program or talk to you that they might have to have meetings or outings near, where the mentee lives, or where they go to school. If that is something that if like traveling to that area or just traveling in general is not something that they're willing to do, it's good to know that and to be advertising that, in advance. Again, so the people that are coming to you are people that are prepared to interact with or work within your specific program. So now we'll go into, again, this idea of crafting messages. Fun fact about me, I'm a huge like international relations, international studies nerd. I have my graduate degree from the Penn State School of International Affairs. And so that means I love acronyms. There are acronyms all over international relations and national security. This is actually one I encountered this acronym first. This is an acronym that is actually used to talk about when intelligence agencies gather or they recruit human assets, what the motivations of those people are to work with, members of the intelligence community. I have made the acronym a little bit tamer and talking about why people volunteer or why people would want to commit to an initiative like a mentoring program. So, going through each of these, we have M in parentheses B, ICE or mice. BICE doesn't roll off the tongue as well. Starting with the MB, we have money or benefits. So some volunteers might be motivated to come out because it is giving them a specific, I don't want to say payoff because most of our programs don't have things like paid mentorship, but if there is a stipend within the program to do activities or things like free movie tickets, that would fall within this category and is something that should be, made clear to potential volunteers that this, the any financial burden or perceived financial burden is not going to be on them. Or if you would be signing off on things like community service hours, course credit, or any a specific type of professional life experience. Mentors, as I just mentioned, are required to wear a lot of different hats. And for obviously you want the person to come and be committed to the mission of what you're doing, but there is also very real, shared learning opportunities in a program like this. And there's a lot of professional and personal development that can come from being a mentor working with young people. The I here is ideology. These are these quotes underneath of I, C, and E they are paraphrased versions of feedback that I have gotten from volunteers over the years that kind of fit within these categories in terms of why they decided to join a specific program. What this looks like, your program's mission aligns with my worldview or the impact that I want to have on my community. Sometimes it can be, one of the agencies I worked with at one point was Catholic Charities, Migration and Refugee Services. I had a lot of people, we had a lot of volunteers come in with some version of I serve because my faith tells me to. And having this be a part of, how they interact with their worldview, can be a really powerful and really important motivator. Conscience. This can sometimes looks like, I saw an article or was made aware of some issue affecting my local community or even my, broader state or national community, and I couldn't just stay home and not do anything. Or I don't like what's happening in the world right now, and I want to be a part of real change. One thing I will say with volunteers that come to you or express these types of motivations as a part of your screening process. I don't think you have to like address it directly, but as you're doing mentor interviews, it is a good thing to make sure that you can like identify people who may be motivated in this category, people who are actually, motivated to take action versus people who have this expectation that they are going to come and save kids or be, to use one type of category. You don't want to bring people in who are having this, this expected notion of being kind of like a white savior. You want to make sure that these motivations are healthy motivations and not, motivations that might cross boundaries. Finally, we have E or ego. I don't mean this in kind of the negative connotation it can sometimes have. This is just about the way that that an opportunity like a mentoring program or volunteering to be a mentor would affect a person's image of themselves. Or it can also be interpreted as like a sense of belonging to something or being a part of something greater than them. So your organization does great work, and I want to be, a card carrying member of Mentor Inc. I want to be, a part of your team. Or mentors were a huge influence in my life, and I want to prove to myself that I can have the same impact on a mentee or on a young person that these mentors had to me. All strong motivations, all things that can be folded into your recruitment messaging, and the outreach you're doing with your ideal mentors and targeted population. So, looking at how we can use this really, and I'm gonna put this in the frame. I know there was a lot of asks for tips for how to recruit male mentors, so I decided to kind of in the examples I'm providing with the MICE or BICE, acronym. I decided to try and focus on recruiting male mentors. So one thing that and I will say the inputs for this is a combined, things that have worked for me or that I've seen work with organizations that I have directly worked with. It also comes from like data about male volunteers and why they volunteer, motivations. I'm happy to share kind of the sources that I put because the data is out there and your organization may be able to use it in a different way than I have provided. So I'm happy to, it's like publicly available stuff. So I'm happy to provide that. Um, I decided to skip M in the examples here because obviously things that are sort of hard benefits are going to look differently for every program. So that I would trust you all more if you decide to provide those to your mentors to be able to advertise those in a way that is clear. But talking first about focusing on impact and on skill building. There is some of the data and experience that I've had. Men like to see a real a tangible impact and are not always motivated by kind of lofty kind of help the community pillar of community type messages. They want to know like exactly what type of skills they are building and who they are building them with. Example, mentors offer vital support to our community and our young people. They draw from their lived experience to coach mentees who are creating their own visions of future success. I put coach in red, and I want to address this for a second. There's a lot of I've been to a lot of trainings talking about male mentor recruitment where there is this kind of, I don't want to call it homespun wisdom, but there's this common, putting, using language is very important when you're recruiting volunteers, and I don't want to take away from that. But I think people have come to rely too much on these type like sports analogies when we talk about male mentor recruitment. You can't go to a session about this where people don't talk about referring to men as coaches or talking about coaching. And that can be a very powerful message to, male volunteers, statistically, and because of cultural norms that have traditionally leaned one way, men are more likely, from a young age on than women to participate in team sports. And so this idea of coaching or being, a part of a team can be really powerful. There are also other words, that is not meant to be like a sort of master key to, to recruiting men. I have actually found the idea of guiding it can be really powerful because a lot of men are pushed more towards like outdoor activities, things like Boy Scouts and things like that, and that can resonate with a male volunteer who's had a similar experience. I'm putting that in red just to say, that is there and can be a resource to you all. But there's a broader world out there than just sports language, which I know is focused on a lot when on the subject of recruiting male mentors. Moving on to the next one, positioning your program as a sort of life raft against feeling powerless to enact change in your like community or in your area. Um, I would say this goes for anybody, but nobody wants to feel when people are dealing with big problems, nobody wants to feel powerless. And I think this is a message that can be powerful, for anybody who is feeling this way. But particularly for men, again, this is more of a data driven point here, but you can use messaging like, for example, we are looking for committed mentors to help high school students create post-graduation plans in an increasingly complex employment landscape. One person, one man, or one volunteer may not be able to change the complex employment landscape, but they can certainly help a high school student create a post-graduation plan from their lived experience. So this is kind of an exercise in taking a big problem facing a community or a population and putting it into maybe a bite-sized piece. But that bite-sized piece can be the motivation for, or the difference between somebody feeling like they can't do anything and like they can take this very tangible, real opportunity to help and run with it. Lastly, as far as the sort of the ego piece, highlighting mentor roles as a part of a larger team or movement. I know this is antithetical to what I was just saying about using all like sports coach team language, but I think there is a very real one of the data points that I encountered looking at this, even just among volunteering, like in general, men are more likely to volunteer with formal volunteering organizations because the feedback based on that was that they feel like they need the support of the organization to be able to volunteer, whereas women are more likely to go into like more informal volunteering roles. An example is a real life example of this. I think I saw we had a Big Brothers Big Sisters staff member on the call, so I know this will be old news or very familiar. I worked with Big Brothers Big Sisters in both Philadelphia and Charlottesville, and I was working with them at the time that they released this video. It was about I think 4 or 5 years ago now. Big Brothers Big Sisters came out with a national campaign talking about mentors as being defenders of potential. For those of you who have been in a training session with me and who have heard this story probably 25 times because I love it, I apologize for the rerun, but I'm going to bring it out, now. At the time this came out, I was working with Big Brothers Big Sisters in Charlottesville, and we started using this idea of mentors, like defending the potential of young people in our outreach. We used the national materials, and we created some materials of our own, and we ran with it, and we were loving it. And very shortly after we started using this, we started getting some inquiries about volunteering from a specific library in Charlottesville that we had never like they were not on our radar as like a way to recruit. They were not in sort of our community asset map, and so we looked into it. We were kind of wondering like what gives with this, and it turns out that at the library there was a group of tabletop game players, like Dungeons and Dragons players, people that read this language, took this language, and by the way, the people that reached out to us, they were predominantly male, and took this not just as a call to action, but as a challenge, and were interested in finding out more. Not every inquiry based on that, turned into a real actual volunteer going through the entire program, but it certainly got people to our door, and it did create some opportunities to recruit people that went on to become mentors. So language does matter. One tool that I also love to use whenever I can is within your program, post a recruiting mentors or like post matching and a person actually participating fully is to have mechanisms for mentors to connect, to socialize, and to support one another. Oftentimes, other than your match support meetings, fellow mentors can be your best resource to support one another, and you are following through. If you're going to advertise based on this larger team or movement, having a real way to follow through with that is going to make sure that that is the most, effective that it can be. So, getting your message out. We've created our picture in our mind about what our ideal volunteer looks like. We have figured out, we what may be the best motivator for them. How do we get this message out? And we are looking to get our message out to both volunteers or potential volunteers and brokers. So a volunteer being someone who's going to directly participate in your program, a broker being someone who's connected with the community or an organization and who can help you identify and recruit suitable mentors. So good brokers could be current mentors who understand your program and know who within their network might be a good fit for it. College or university staff, student group leadership, like student unions or clubs, particularly clubs that speak to, the particular like demographic or particular community that you are serving. Corporate community outreach reps and church and community leaders, all people who can help you not just identify ways to reach your target audience, but to be sort of that credible voice for your program. Um, Obviously, there are as much as there are challenges with recruiting volunteers, there are also there are equally difficult or there are equal difficulties or challenges when it comes to reaching out to brokers. To some people that you may email about this, you are just one more problem that they don't need in this moment. For others, this may be an opportunity that they may have been seeking to connect with someone who can give the population they interact with an opportunity to engage with the community in like a new or a more intense way. But the idea of creating that partnership may be intimidating to them. So these are opportunities to grow your program, but it does come with some legwork and some outreach as much as reaching actual volunteers. One thing I encourage agencies to do is to don't be monolithic with the way that you reach out to your community. Reaching out to volunteers is not one size fits all or one message fits all. One tool I use when I work with different agencies is I have them create a community network web. I would love to show you one here in the PowerPoint, but PowerPoint did not like me trying to include an image of it. Then the formatting went kind of really weird. So I will be sharing one, like a blank version of one, in the handoff after this presentation. But you want to be able to kind of organize and visualize your action steps for, okay, if I'm reaching out to, college students or university students, am I reaching out to like corporate volunteers? Am I reaching out to the like retired or like over 55 community? What do each of my action steps look like? And what is my plan for both the motivations I want to channel and how I'm going to get that message to that specific community. I also at times look, I am somebody in my different positions who I have sent plenty of emails and contact forms and phone calls and cold calls to organizations and have gotten no response. I've been there. It's happened. And I would encourage, if this is a problem that you continue having, or that's is something that is a frustration, to look at what I would call a backdoor approach versus a front door approach. So an example of this would be a program looking for mentors with engineering experience. Instead of walking through the door or calling these firms directly, looking for a LinkedIn networking group for engineers in the area, or like an American Society of Civil Engineers if there's a local chapter. Reaching out to these organizations. The difference here, and just to be clear, I don't recommend, if you are trying to reach out to an individual person, emailing them 5 times on their corporate email and then looking for their specific LinkedIn profile and trying to reach out to them there. That's borderline stalking. We don't want to do that. But what you are doing by looking at these networking groups or these organizations that are part of their purpose is networking, is you are reaching out in a space where it attracts people already that are willing to engage with the larger community, or at least with their peers, and you are catching them in a space where they are prepared to network and not at their desk looking at 500 emails and you're one of them. So engaging people in a space where they are prepared to network, that goes for both volunteers and brokers, is a great way to make sure, even if the response is no, that they are at least in a headspace and in a position to respond to you. Also, you don't want to be afraid to use a mix of what we call passive versus active recruitment. So active recruitment is more of the traditional kind of Uncle Sam wants you or my organization wants you to do a specific thing. It's conducting this targeted outreach with a specific ask in mind. Passive is just maintaining kind of a footprint or a presence in your community. So these are things like publishing success stories in community newsletters or social media, publishing about when you do like events or new mentor trainings, just getting your name out there. This is the kind of thing where, in the same way that when somebody needs new tires and they've seen 10 or 12 different Bridgestone ads, they're going to look at Bridgestone first to compare prices. When a person decides in their heart that they are ready to commit to a volunteer opportunity like this, if you are the name they have seen the most, then they are, even if they don't end up landing with you, you are at least going to be their first or second look. And I know that active feels more like you are doing something, but passive can be just as important in terms of bringing, committed mentors who have already decided I am prepared to do this, and this is the organization I've seen that has, at least as far as the content that I am consuming, this organization looks active, so I'm going to try them. So passive and active both has a lot of utility. Ultimately, we are looking for the right place, right person, right time. So getting our message in the right setting to the right person who's ready to receive it at the time that they are ready to commit. So in terms of talking about potential action steps, and I'm trying to use different groups, these would be kind of the input to the community network web that I was talking about. First of all, again, I can't stress this enough. This is a very underutilized tool. Monthly or quarterly network meetings with your mentors. I'm a big fan of work smart, not hard. Having brokers to help you with recruitment or having your current mentors help you is a big boon. And one thing, I'm borrowing this from an agency I worked with years ago. They would have quarterly meetings with their volunteers and specifically with their mentor group. The meetings would usually be at a coffee shop, or like occasionally we'd have it at like a bar, somewhere where it was an informal environment, and volunteers felt comfortable to speak freely. It was an opportunity, for the program staff and the people who were going. It was an opportunity to check in with mentors where, again, they were with peers and felt like they were empowered to speak about their experience. It's a good way to check in and make sure that mentors are going to stick around. And it's also, if you can actualize their knowledge of the community to help you to recruit more mentors or have them become, through connecting with them in this way, helping them feel to be like a part of the team and turning them into ambassadors for you, that's going to be a great help to your program and to getting your message out. Um, for corporate groups, this is something I've tried in different cities. I call them Main Street walks. This is identifying two or three or four businesses within close proximity to each other and just walking through the door, which again has a range of possible outcomes, depending on like what their situation is. When I've done this, sometimes it is on an actual main street, or sometimes I just kind of locate a couple of businesses in the area and walk in. I've gotten everything from, we don't accept visitors, to getting the correct contact for the agency, getting updated information that isn't on their website, to having impromptu in-person meetings with people who have become partners and have helped me to recruit mentors for a specific program. Obviously, this is the definition of taking time away from your normal duties to go and do this, but I think ultimately, at least, but the nice thing about this, besides just emailing, a bunch of people you find online, is that you can at least walk away usually with meeting with somebody who can confirm that you have the right contact information. So you always come away with a sort of a like checkbox, where at the very least, you have the right way to contact the organization, or if they just tell you straight up that they're not, interested in helping at this time, you have checked that box and can move on. For college and universities, I think this is another underutilized thing. A lot of campuses have they'll have like speaker series or current events forum. When I went to college, we had a space called the Clark Forum, which would bring in like monthly speakers to talk about hot topics in current events. If your organization, if you look at their speaker series, and if your organization has an ask or is related in some way in terms of the work you do to a topic on that speaker series, those speakers are and those universities are always looking to have ways for students to engage in the topic further with community organizations. So reaching out to the coordinators of those speaker series or maybe a specific speaker might be a way to get your foot in the door of that campus, already talking to people that are interested in a specific topic. Um, for interest groups, we have I recently have attended a couple of advocacy summits because prior to working with communities and schools, I was in refugee resettlement, as I mentioned. Obviously there is a lot of momentum and a lot of different groups that in the political environment we find ourselves in now, for better or worse, it is generating a lot of public awareness and people trying to get together and figuring out what can I do to help or what can I do about this. And Without being cynical, I would say taking advantage of those opportunities in your community. And if there are groups, for example, so the summit I recently attended on behalf of communities and schools, it was a like immigration advocacy summit within Virginia, but they had subgroups about education and health and things like that. And When I joined the education group, apologize, I'm hearing myself echoing here. When I joined the education group and talked about my specific program with again like-minded organizations and individuals, that helped me make a lot of connections within the community because you're reaching out to your target audience. So I would encourage you to, I think a lot of those organized events or organizations are arranging events on social media or on their website. Going and looking for those, I think is definitely worthwhile, especially in this given time period. Finally, I'll put one in for male mentors. I went through scouting, myself. Scouting units or district roundtables are a good way. This, I think, would be more an opportunity to recruit brokers than volunteers because most men or adults who are volunteering in scouting already have their time taken up by scouting. But certainly, these are people that are already interested in volunteering and are in that community and can help you to, if there are volunteers within the scouting community or beyond that. I think this is a good way to have sort of a credible voice, someone who is already volunteering and who kind of speaks the language and knows the surrounding community. I hope this has been really helpful. I tried to make it so we had some time to talk at the end, but I'm going to move on to any questions people have and any discussion. I encourage any of you, if you have extra tips that have worked for you or best practices. Like I said, I'm not the guy with all the answers. I will just put out there that this presentation and some additional resources will be sent to you all or made available to anybody who signed up for this community coffee hour. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Y'all are probably tired of my slides now. And I'm going to open it up to anybody who, if you have any questions about what was presented or want to share any good tips or strategies that have worked for you, I want to make space for that to happen.
Steve, I really appreciated having kind of the profile of who you're looking for. One of the things we have done in struggling to get male mentors is to do a community survey about what are the barriers that are keeping us from getting male mentors. We've changed our programming a bit to adjust to that. But I think as I was looking through like building a profile, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it really helped me like, oh, I can put these 10 places off my list because the barriers we've talked about exist in these places. I am fortunate to be, part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, so we have a great research body, as you know. But for us, it's realizing that predominantly we heard from men, I don't want to put a kid in my car. I would prefer if you planned the activity. and I would prefer a staff member to be on site. And so really, I can imagine using that profile to make sure that we are hitting places where that's possible.
Yeah, for sure. As because I mentioned I used to work at Big Brothers Big Sisters Charlottesville, so as a former neighbor to y'all, howdy. Yeah, and I will say this: I don't always in terms of recruiting male mentors, I don't always recommend something like putting specific structures to your program because some programs don't have capacity to do that, and it would be kind of for a program it might be venturing towards transitioning from a more community-based model to a more site-based model. But I have also heard a lot of feedback like that from male mentors. So the idea of something where sort of you might will meet them at their workplace, for example, and the mentee and the staff member are all provided there seems to resonate, a lot, but that is a lot of legwork for the agency. So that
I,
could be, yeah.
yeah, I agree with you, but I will say it was less legwork for us in the long run. So we did switch to a site-based facilitated program.
Okay.
We had 400% more male mentors the first year we had it. And our team spent less time recruiting, less time trying to track down case management. Everybody was a captive audience. It did mean that we had one staff member who had to commit to certain hours where normally we have a very flexible schedule. So I do know for some agencies, our agency is very small, there's only 8 of us, that is a hard shift, but worthwhile for us. I don't think we would have continued to have male mentors had we not thought about shifting some of the parameters. And I will say some of them were even perceived. So we used to have a year commitment. Now we stay at 6 months. Our numbers have not changed. Our mentoring matches are still lasting on average 22 months, even though we're saying the commitment is 6 months and we're honoring that. Sometimes, especially for men that we have found, that perceived difference can matter. But I really do appreciate that profile, and I definitely will be using it.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say again, I think some version of what Elizabeth was talking about is definitely possible. I think the key to any model like that is finding a good broker that will meet you in the middle and will as much as they're relying on support for you to create that space for members of their company and mentees to meet together. You're also you're looking for them to help with recruitment and making sure that the follow through happens. So anything like that depends on a really like a good partner and a good broker, and does create a lot of can create a lot of extra legwork for staff. But yeah,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I agree. I've seen that. I've seen that work in a lot of even like sort of smaller kind of mini ways. I've seen that work really, really well for programs who can commit to that. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
And just to be clear, we don't have a broker. We're using public space. Like we're not using a business. We are still recruiting volunteers ourselves. We're using completely public space and just inviting bigs to meet us in public spaces so that they're
Yeah.
not transporting littles. I know it can be really difficult to make those relationships, but we are using parks and public churches and city space that is free to the public, in case that feels less daunting to anyone else.
Awesome. Yeah. And there's definitely for any program who is curious about kind of what that looks like. Again, I think both Elizabeth and I were talking about two different versions of what site-based can be just the location you're using or having an actual partner site who is working with you. And that could look different for different programs. There's a lot of resources and a lot of different examples of that are available. Someone from Mentor Virginia, I or somebody can certainly help you look for that if that's something you'd be interested in learning more about. But yeah, definitely. I think to the extent, and I mentioned earlier, I think male mentors are a lot more motivated in a program where they are supported or there's structure around them. That can be certainly a way, as Elizabeth was saying, not trying to steal your fire. That can certainly be a way to provide that for them. Absolutely. Any other questions or feedback? Other tips and tricks? I know I want to leave 5 minutes for Emma to give any updates and spiel and stuff like that. So
I have a question that's open to the floor, but also Steve, you as well. But if anyone has had any success in any certain areas, whether that's a certain online space or if that's at the library, certain like public spaces. You could just share like some of your success stories. I think it'd be great for other people to hear on the call as well. We already heard a little bit from Big Brothers Big Sisters, but anyone else have anything?
I'll also introduce the sort of the flip side to that coin. If anybody has had any particular challenges, things that may have worked or not worked. Again, this is I'm for the last couple of minutes. This is a place to talk about anything that has or has not worked, and maybe any learning lessons that kind of came from that. Because, like I said, recruitment is not easy.
Well, that's okay. We'll wrap up a little bit. Oh, wait, no, I saw Cindy come on mute. Sorry, that's caught you
Hi,
out, Cindy.
sorry, I'm having my breakfast, so no cam. Um, so my experience with recruiting volunteers was mainly for the AmeriCorps program. They're not gonna perform as mentors. They're just gonna work with mentoring programs across Virginia. And I think the thing that worked the most was using the AmeriCorps platform to post these job positions. Um, that worked a lot. And then I use Handshake. Handshake is a platform that a lot of universities work with around Virginia. And so you post a volunteer job position, and then different students from different universities just see the position. If they're interested, they can apply or reach out to you or go directly to AmeriCorps to apply for that. I think that worked a lot, but we have always had um some like difficulties with recruiting volunteers for the program, mainly because there's a lot of people who apply for the job that are not necessarily ready for it, or they, the requirements that we have, they don't meet those requirements. And a lot of people are just looking for opportunities within the nonprofit sector right after university. So that we have a lot of recent graduates apply to positions they're not sure what they want to do in the future. So they're just like, let's take a year alone volunteer position and then figure out what I want to do later on, kind of thing. But we have a lot of people who are between jobs and they just think that maybe having a volunteer position um is good for like 6 months to a year. The program worked. It was successful. Emma was part of the American program. I was part of the American program. Virginia, our ED, also was part of the American program. The thing that I think that a lot of people struggle with is the year-long commitment. Yeah, a lot of people are not ready to be a volunteer for a whole year. They're just looking for 6 months or so when they can, trying to do some volunteer while they figure out what they're gonna do next. So yeah, that's our experience with the medical program at Mentor Virginia.
Awesome. Thanks, Cindy. I want to add to that too. I was also a part of the America program with Mentor Virginia. And I can tell you, as a way to kind of magnify what we were talking about earlier, one of the reasons why I was able to make that decision to join based on where I was at that point in my life, the program coordinator at the time was very honest about what the challenges would be, or their knowledge of what the challenges would be, what kind of support that I could expect from the agency, and what kinds of things that I would be, expected or encouraged to like learn on my own. And that's why I encourage, it may seem in your message like it is sort of points like against your program, but always be honest about challenges and make sure that your mentors are they're coming to you, knowing what they're going to expect as much as possible and prepared to take on that volunteer opportunity, knowing they're going to get support from you, but knowing like what is to be expected of mentors also. Being honest is really important. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing today, Steve. I loved your presentation. And thank you guys who participated in the Q&A at the end as well. I dropped in the chat a survey for everyone. So it's just a little bit of feedback on today's session, how helpful it was for you all, but then also an opportunity to share what topics might be helpful in the future. We do try to pick them based on things we've heard in the past from these sessions. And also before we wrap up, just sharing again, so we do have our technical assistance program and training. In order to be completely transparent, our technical assistance program is probably only going to be no cost through the end of October, which is this government fiscal year. The reality of the situation, as many of you all probably know, is like the federal funding is just not as present as it was before. So I do want to give everyone the opportunity to apply to that. If you're interested in that, reach out to me and we can provide those services at no cost before a cost is potentially attached to that. Other than that, everyone have a great day and enjoy the extra 2 minutes you're getting back.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Have a great rest of the day.